Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Today I'm going to be talking about the latest Rocky film, Creed 2. Creed 2 is a part of what's basically a spin-off series to the Rocky films. They're in the same universe. They feature characters from the Rocky films. This is the second Rocky film, though, to be more so about the son of Apollo Creed, Adonis Creed, played by Michael B. Jordan. This is the second film to do that. Um, there were six Rocky films before the Creed series. Now we're on to Creed, which is obviously the first Creed, and now this new one. This new film is directed by Stephen Cable Jr., who I really haven't seen a lot of work before this movie. Apparently, he directed a film called The Land, which I unfortunately did not see. But from what I've seen of clips of it, it seems like a very well directed film based off what I've seen of it. I haven't seen the whole thing, but he did land the directing duty for this film since Ryan Coogler was busy with Black Panther earlier in the year, so he wasn't able to direct Creed 2, unfortunately, though he remained involved as a producer. But in Creed 2, you guys, Adonis Creed is now heavyweight champion of the world. Though his fight with Ricky Conlan in the first film didn't work out, um, it worked out, but obviously it didn't give him the title that he wanted. So Adonis Creed fought some other opponents, and so he got to the heavyweight championship of the world through those other opponents. He's got the top of his game. He's really representing the Creed family very well. Anything that his father Apollo Creed didn't achieve around the time he was around, Adonis Creed has definitely achieved at this point in time. But this title that he has, heavyweight champion of the world, gets challenged when he finds out that Ivan Drago's son, Viktor Drago, is starting to work his way up in the ranks in the boxing world. And Adonis Creed views this as a very personal fight because Ivan Drago was the one that killed his own father during the events of Rocky IV. That's why Adonis Creed has never got a chance to meet his own father over the course of his life. So he views this as a very personal fight. It does get to the point where Victor Drago does work his way up to what would be heavyweight champion of the world if he does beat Adonis Creed in a boxing match. So this is a very personal fight for Adonis Creed. Rocky himself does not want Adonis to take this fight for the simple reason that he never really recovered from the events of Rocky IV. He still views Apollo's death as something of his own fault. He could have threw the towel in, but he did not. So he's trying to teach Adonis Creed about this and what he's worried about and everything. Obviously, Adonis's mother is scared. His girlfriend is scared, played by Tessa Thompson once again. So she's scared about the whole thing. So there's a lot of people who kind of don't want Adonis to take this fight, but Adonis really does, or Donnie as they like to call him. Donnie really wants to take this fight. He really thinks taking this fight and winning this fight is not only going to help him maintain heavyweight champion of the world, but it'll kindly prove to people that um, that fight that Apollo took with Ivan Drago was not a joke. It was definitely something very serious, very tragic, and he really wants to prove to everybody that the Creed family is one of the best around, and that the Dragos are not going to take that title away from the Creed family. So that's really what this film is about: is Adonis Creed maintaining his title while taking on what basically is going to be one of the biggest boxing matches of his entire life. So overall, guys, I really liked Creed 2 a lot. Um, I thought it was a very good Rocky film. Not the best Rocky film. Definitely far better than Rocky 5. I think every Rocky film is better than Rocky 5. But I thought it was a very good film, though. I thought it was very emotionally powerful. I liked a lot of aspects about it. Though Ryan Coogler's presence was very missed in this movie, this clearly was a different director who made this movie. Um, I still thought it was very well made. I have a lot of positive things to say about it. So let's go over some positives and negatives of what I really liked about Creed 2. It may why possibly it's not the best Rocky film ever made, but there is some things about it that I think you should know about going into this movie. So for my positives of Creed 2, I think the Rocky 4 elements really work in this film. How the death of Apollo still hurts Rocky Balboa to this day. That one day in Rocky 4 where Apollo died, it still hurts Rocky. It's something he's always going to regret, something that he is always going to miss. He's always going to miss Apollo being around. He really feels that Apollo should still be alive, still be able to take care of his son and everything like that. So that's one thing that I thought this film did really well, was handling all the Rocky 4 elements. There's even a scene with Rocky and Ivan Drago in the Adrian's restaurant from some of the previous Rocky films. And when they're sitting down and talking to each other, it really is strong stuff. It really is a very intense feeling. So the Rocky 4 elements were very well handled in this movie. I would say this film also has a very emotional punch. I would say the scenes where we're supposed to feel bad for Donnie or the girlfriend or Rocky, or even scenes with the Dragos. You know how Viktor Drago has to kind of live up to this title since Ivan Drago was not the person that claimed Rocky's title in Rocky 4. So there's definitely an emotional punch to this film, no pun intended there. But very emotional. It's very impactful. I really kind of cared about everybody as a result. So I thought that part of the film was very well handled. I also felt very, very invested in the characters and even the villains. I thought Viktor Drago was a much better villain than Ricky Conlan was in the previous Creed film, though the first Creed film really wasn't intended to have a villain per se. I just remember Ricky Conlan being kind of a big throwaway villain in that movie. But I thought Viktor Drago in this film was very convincing, very strong, very threatening. You really get the sense that when you're in the ring with this guy, you're going to take a beating. Whether that means you win the fight or lose the fight, you're going to come out of that fight with at least a couple of broken bones. So they really did emphasize just how strong Viktor Drago is and how how invested I felt, and like I said, how I even cared about the villains at times. So they did a good job making sure I felt invested in everybody. I would say the ending of this film, which I won't spoil for anybody who hasn't seen the movie, but the ending of this film I thought was very strong and emotional. It definitely brings the franchise into full circle if this is indeed the last Rocky film, and even the last Creed film for that matter. Very strong, very emotional. Definitely really felt something here in the movie. Definitely, Apollo did not die for no reason. You know, the film really does emphasize just how unimportant the character of Apollo Creed is in this franchise. So definitely a very strong and emotional ending that I think is really going to tug on all the really hardcore fans of the Rocky series and their heartstrings. And like I mentioned earlier, the Rocky to Drago tension was very strong, whether that is them going to a press conference or sitting down at the Adrian's restaurant talking about kind of where they are in life and what happened after the events of Rocky 4, where Ivan Drago has been, where Rocky has been. I thought all of that was handled very, very well. So the tension between those two characters I thought was very well handled. Definitely a strong continuation of Rocky 4 right there. Then, like I mentioned earlier too, I think that this film really displays the importance of Apollo Creed. It really did show how important of a character Apollo Creed is. That he's been an important part of the franchise since day one, since the first Rocky film even. So they really do emphasize just how an important character Apollo Creed is in the Rocky franchise. But for my negatives of Creed 2, why I feel it's not one of the better Rocky films, is I thought some of the boxing choreography felt a little too close up. Some of the boxing choreography were either too close to the fighters or they're trying to show it in first person, which could work in an interesting way depending on how you do it. I thought it felt a little too intimate this time. I really felt one thing that Ryan Coogler did with the first Creed film is when there's a lot of blood on the arena or when there's when somebody gets knocked down and we follow the fall with them, or in the Rocky films where, you know, in Rocky 2 where it's either Rocky or Creed that have to climb up on the ropes and whoever stands up first will win the fight and stuff like that. I thought some of that was very good boxing filming. I thought some of the choreography in this film, like I said, was a little too close up, and it just didn't feel right. There's something about the boxing choreography in the film that just didn't quite feel right to me. Also, another thing too about this film is it's very formulaic and predictable. Every beat you're going to catch on to in this film. I really was not surprised by anything, really. There's certain moments that feel like something out of Rocky 3. There's certain moments that feel like something out of Rocky 4. And there's certainly moments in this film that feel like they're out of a Rocky 2 part as well. So I thought certain aspects of the story just feel borrowed from other Rocky films. So it never really becomes its own Rocky film or own Creed film as a result. So like I said, some of it is very formulaic and kind of predictable in some areas. I also thought the opening scene was very weak in this film. It was a very uninteresting way to kind of introduce Viktor Drago into the story. I felt really all we're seeing in the opening scene, without spoiling anything, is just kind of his regular workout routine, and that's kind of boring. So I thought they could have done something more interesting. Maybe they could have shown a fight that he had in private that was brutal and intense, or they could have showed just how intense Ivan Drago could get with him during his training, or like with the first Creed film, did we saw something in Adonis Creed's childhood that really showed that he was a fighter. I thought they could have done maybe a young Victor Drago, maybe, or something like that for this film, and they don't. It's just Victor Drago getting up in the morning, doing a workout with Ivan Drago, and that's about it. And so they just kind of move on to the next scene, and then it's about Adonis Creed again. So I thought the opening scene in this film was just very weak and kind of didn't really catch my interest the way that I was hoping the opening of this film was going to do. And then my last negative about Creed 2 is I thought this film really kind of needed that John G. Avildsen moment, that Sylvester Stallone moment, or the Ryan Coogler moment where you really feel like you're in the presence of a very talented director that's really going to add their own touch to the Rocky series, move the franchise forward, have their own clever stamp on it, and really bring these Rocky films out into the world the best way possible. Nothing against Stephen Caple Jr. I thought he made a good film here, and he directed a good film here. There was really nothing he did, though, that put his own special stamp on the movie. I felt like there's a lot of other great directors, too, that would have made just as great a product here that he did. So I thought the film really needed that John G. Avildsen moment, the man who did the first Rocky and the fifth one. Sylvester Stallone, who did Rocky 2, Rocky 3, Rocky 4, and Rocky Balboa. I thought Stallone kind of added his own stamp to the franchise, too, when he wrote and directed these installments. And then even Ryan Coogler with the first Rocky, or with the first Creed film. I thought he added his own special touch. I thought the opening of his film was very good. I thought the way the boxing was handled was very good. It showed us how intense boxing can be. I didn't really care for the whole boxer status thing that he did in the first Creed film. I'm glad that that was gone in this one, but I really felt something that Ryan Coogler did in the first Creed film didn't quite cross over to this film as well. And even if that wasn't the intent, I thought it really needed that other special directorial touch to really bring Creed 2 to life the best way possible. And some of those touches just weren't quite there in this movie. But overall, I'm going to give Creed 2 an 8.5 out of 10. I really like this film. There's tons of great things to like about it. Definitely a very great continuation of Rocky 4 for sure. But like I said, some of the boxing choreography was a little too close up and intimate for me. Some of the story was very predictable and formulaic. I thought the opening scene was very weak and uninteresting for a Creed/Rocky film, and we really need that John G. Avildsen, Sylvester Stallone, and Ryan Coogler touch that they brought to the Rocky franchise that just wasn't quite as present this time around. So 8.5 out of 10 for me. Not the worst Rocky film, certainly not the best one either, though. Kind of a middle of the road installment for the franchise that isn't bad, isn't amazing, but it's still a very good film. So I highly recommend seeing Creed 2. Do go into this film, though, knowing that it's not the most amazing Rocky film you're ever going to watch, though. 8.5 out of 10 for me. I highly recommend it. Be sure to see Creed 2.